Most DreamWorks villains don't just lose, they get humiliated. But a few of them made the hero look lucky just to survive. These aren't your typical animated bad guys. Some of these characters operate on a level that makes you genuinely question how the story was allowed to end the way it did. One of them aren't even evil. He is a true monster. Starting from number 12.
Start anew, with you by my side as my queen.
Most villains want to take over the world. Mandible looked at that plan and thought, too complicated. What if we just drown the poor people instead? And I wish I were exaggerating. This man held a military rank at an ant colony.
Going to change around here.
You're right, princess.
Which is already the most aggressively corporate sentence I have ever said out loud, and decided the most efficient solution to class inequality was a controlled flood. Yes, a flood of his own people that he personally engineered, while maintaining full eye contact and absolutely zero guilt. He has no powers, not even a particularly threatening physical presence, honestly. What he has is an ideology, a construction project, and the unsettling energy of someone who has already decided how this ends before you even sit down. But the scariest part? He almost pulled it off.
Today is the realization of a dream. A dream of a proud colony. A pure colony. A colony reborn.
The colony was seconds away from being completely wiped out. And Mandible, this man, was standing there calm, like he was waiting for a quarterly report to come in. He built the flood for everyone he considered weak. However, the weak survived. He didn't.
The colony.
Oh, look out!
The universe has a very specific sense of humor, and Mandible found out the hard way. He doesn't rank higher because his ambitions stop at one colony. But a character this cold, calculated, and convinced, existing in an animated movie made for children? It definitely hints that someone at DreamWorks was going through something serious. Speaking of characters who treat mass casualties like a strict business plan, at number 11, we have Mrs. Tweedy. Let's be real for a second. Mrs. Tweedy is literally just a woman with a farm, an axe, and a business plan.
What's all this then?
This is our future, Mr. Tweedy.
And she is somehow one of the most unsettling characters DreamWorks has ever put on screen. And I think people genuinely underestimate her because of the format. It's claymation, and it's, of course, chickens. It looks friendly, but if you actually look at that farm, this woman runs it like a maximum security detention camp. Individual fenced enclosures for every chicken, watchtowers, a roll call system where every bird is counted by name every single morning. Underperforming chickens get pulled from the group.
Edwina!
And they literally don't come back. The only difference between Tweedy's farm and an actual wartime detention facility is the species involved. And honestly, even that distinction feels thin. When she walks into that chicken coop, and I need you to picture this, every single chicken goes completely silent. She just walks in, and the fear is already there waiting for her. And then she actually builds a fully functional industrial chicken pie machine inside her barn.
It's a pie machine, you idiot. Chickens go in, pies come out.
She installed it herself, learned how it operated, and even ran test cycles on it.
Chickens go in. Pies come out.
I mean, what type of motivation does she have? The chickens eventually use that exact mechanical setup against her. She gets launched. The farm falls apart. The chickens escape. And Mrs. Tweedy, who spent the entire film 2 steps ahead of everyone, got beaten by the one thing she never accounted for: prey that simply refused to accept the situation they were born into. That kind of chilling, meticulous control is terrifying. But what happens when you take that control away entirely and hand godlike power to an absolute loser? Titan is a cameraman. A regular, completely unremarkable cameraman who got accidentally injected with superhero DNA by Megamind, who was actually trying to create a hero to fight. And Megamind genuinely thought this was going to work out. It did not work out. Titan's entire villain origin story is that he got rejected by Roxanne.
Hey, there will never be an us.
But I have powers. I have a cape. I'm the good guy.
That is it. The woman he liked said no, and his response to that was to become the single most destructive force the city had ever seen. He didn't want to rule anything. He didn't want revenge on society. He wanted Roxanne to change her mind. And when she didn't, he just started destroying everything in his immediate vicinity, because at least that felt like doing something. And here is what he does with it. He throws a skyscraper, not at anything specific, just because he is annoyed. That is the entire decision-making process. He felt something, and an entire city block paid for it. No villain on this list has ever made destruction feel that casual, effortless, and genuinely brainless. Megamind, the actual villain of the film for most of the runtime, had to step in and clean up the situation he accidentally created.
Hello.
Thing about bad guys, they always lose.
We have to admit that the villain saved the city from the hero, because at least Megamind had a plan. Titan was just pure, unhinged physical force. But if Titan proves how destructive raw physical power can be, the next guy proves you don't need any physical power at all to destroy a world. You just need a contract.
In return, you sign the kingdom of far, far away over to me.
Which brings us to Rumpelstiltskin. Look at him. Seriously. 2 feet tall, ridiculous wig, being carried around in a tiny carriage by witches. If you saw this man walking towards you on the street, you would not feel threatened. You would feel confused, maybe a little concerned, and then you would keep walking. And that is exactly how he got Shrek. Because here is what Rumpelstiltskin actually does. He watches, he waits. And the moment someone is having a bad enough day that they stop paying attention to the details, he shows up with a contract. And somewhere buried in that contract is a clause that will take everything from you while you are still smiling about what you thought you were getting.
You took the day I was born.
No, Shrek. You gave it to me.
Shrek was having a rough day, missing the simplicity of his old life.
He's free? Oh, that's a laugh.
Yeah?
Sometimes I wish I had just one day to feel like a real ogre again.
Nodded sympathetically and offered him one single day of his old life in exchange for one forgotten day from his childhood.
Go on, Shrek. Sign it. Go on, Shrek. Sign it, Shrek. Just sign it. Oh, you signed it.
So, tell me.
Somehow, it sounds harmless, right? However, the day he took was the day Shrek was born. Fiona does not know who he is. The swamp never existed. His children never happened. And far, far away, the entire kingdom is now Rumpelstiltskin's. Complete with ogre hunters, wanted posters plastered across every wall, and a whole functioning empire built on the single fact that Shrek simply never came into the world. He eventually loses it when Shrek corrects the timeline. But for a significant stretch of that film, this ridiculous tiny man in a wig was the most powerful person in the entire Shrek universe.
And that somebody is the rat-munching ogre called Shrek. Whomever brings me this ogre shall receive the deal of a lifetime.
Rumpelstiltskin stole a universe using patience and a signature. But what if a villain doesn't have the patience for clever tricks? What if they just want everything right now and don't care who gets hurt in the process? There is no tragic backstory here. No moment that explains why he turned out this way. Big Jack Horner is just a man who decided he wanted all the magic in the world and then went and got it. That is the whole story, and that is the whole character. And somehow that is more unsettling than half the origin stories on this list. He has zero magical ability of his own. He cannot cast a spell or fight particularly well.
Fairy tale. was only a nursery rhyme.
What he can do is reach into a bottomless bag and pull out literally anything. Excalibur, a phoenix, a pumpkin bomb, with enough destructive range to make everyone in the film genuinely nervous about him having it. But the scene that really tells you who this man is. He shoots unicorns with a crossbow.
What?
I mean, what type of character is he? He eventually loses to a cat with one wish and a reason to use it. Obviously, all that power, every legendary weapon ever created, and it still was not enough. Jack Horner was a greedy monster for sure. If we talk about the Red Death, you have to realize she had been underneath Burke the entire time. That detail alone should reframe everything you remember about that film. While the Vikings were up top, losing livestock, losing people, and rebuilding their village after every raid, she was sitting directly beneath them, hidden, running the whole operation from below. Every dragon that terrorized Burke for years was not acting on instinct. They were working for her, because the alternative to coming back with food was coming back empty-handed. And nobody did that twice. Night Furies, Gronkles, Zipplebacks, every species in that film, flying out on schedule, raiding on rotation, bringing everything back to the nest. And then you actually see her. 6 eyes. A tail that doesn't just damage things, it removes them from the conversation entirely. She is the size of a geographical feature. She ruled through starvation and terror for decades. Yet, Hiccup defeats her because Toothless trusted a human instead of fearing everything around him. That one variable, one relationship built on something other than a threat, brought her entire structure down. The Red Death controlled an army of dragons from the shadows through sheer terror. But Drago Bludvist from How to Train Your Dragon 2 figures out how to do the exact same thing.
How many?
Drago doesn't have them after all.
How many?
Hundreds. A whole island full.
I wouldn't worry.
Drago Bludvist built an army of dragons, the most dangerous creatures in the known world of this franchise, through pure, overwhelming dominance. Hiccup spent an entire film slowly, carefully, patiently earning the trust of one dragon. That whole journey, the emotional backbone of the entire franchise. However, Drago looked at it and decided it was a waste of time. Why earn trust when you can just make them afraid of you instead? And the genuinely unsettling part is that his version worked faster. He controls the Bewilderbeast, a creature that mind controls an entire species.
Witness true strength. Strength of will over others.
The apex predator of everything in that world answers to Drago, through the same presence that made every single scene he appeared in feel immediately smaller and more dangerous for everyone already in it. Even when he loses, he does not look afraid. He looks like a man making a note of what went wrong, so he can correct it next time. That energy alone puts him on this list. Unlike Kai the Collector from Kung Fu Panda 3, now you already know.
Kai. Nice.
The Furious Five are not background characters. Tigress trained her entire life until she could punch through stone without feeling it. Mantis has strength that scales impossibly beyond his size. Crane, Viper, Monkey, each of them capable of defeating threats that would end most other fighters without a conversation. But Kai turned them into keychains by simply absorbing their chi, their entire spiritual identity, and attaching them to his belt as jade pendants. And he did not stop there. Every kung fu master in the valley, Shifu's entire legacy, every victory makes him stronger because every pendant is a power source. By the time he reaches Po, he is carrying the combined chi of an entire generation of warriors and using all of it at once. He came back from the spirit realm specifically for this. Spent what the film implies was centuries planning it, returned with one purpose: to collect everything. and he nearly completed the collection. But Po did not beat Kai by being stronger. He beat him by doing the one thing Kai spent centuries making sure nobody could do to him. He gave everything away. Freely and without hesitation, he dragged Kai back to the spirit realm where he came from and gave him exactly what he wanted until it tore him apart. But what happens when you face a being who doesn't need to win at all?
You're either a thief or a hero. So here's my question, Sinbad. If you don't get the book, will you go back to die?
The heroes did not defeat Eris. They survived her on a technicality. I mean, look at her actual physical feats in the film. She casually rearranges stars to create new constellations. She manipulates her physical scale at will, growing to the size of a mountain or shrinking to human proportions without expending energy.
He's so cute and so gullible.
And that is the key to understanding her threat level. She engineered the entire plot, framing Sinbad and causing global political instability, simply to introduce chaos into the mortal world. She had nothing to lose. But Eris was not physically overpowered or magically destroyed. As the goddess of discord, she made a binding oath regarding the Book of Peace. When Sinbad actually honored his end of the deal by returning to accept his execution, he trapped her in her own contract. She didn't lose a fight. She was forced by the logistical rules of her own oath to return the book and retreat.
There's just one little thing you have to do. Get the Book of Peace.
The film presents that as a victory, because against a literal god, surviving a contract is the only option you have. But how does a mortal martial artist rank above a god? Because our next villain's danger doesn't come from divine power. It comes from 20 years of maximum security isolation and a broken promise. Shifu found him as a cub and raised him as a son, trained him every single day, pushed him harder than any student before or since, built his entire identity around one promise, that Tai Lung was destined to be the dragon warrior. And then Oogway looked at him and said no. No detailed explanation or any alternative path was offered.
Nothing!
You were not meant to be the dragon warrior. That was not my fault.
Not your fault? Who filled my head with dreams? Who drove me to train until my bones cracked? Who denied me my destiny?
Tai Lung destroyed the valley, trying to take what he believed was already his.
He tried to take the scroll by force, and Shifu had to destroy what he had created.
Got sent to Chorgom Prison, the most fortified facility in the franchise, built specifically around his exact body, staffed by 1,000 guards, designed with the single purpose of making sure he never left. However, he escaped with a feather, used it to pick his restraints, trigger a chain reaction through the entire prison, fight through 1,000 guards, and walk out. The whole sequence takes minutes. If you look at his position as I do, you are probably thinking, he is not entirely wrong. He did train harder than anyone. He was promised something and then denied it without a real explanation. Both of those things are true at the same time.
Hey!
But number one does not have a backstory like that. Remember what I said at the very beginning of this video? This is him.
You're not living up to the legend. Gato.
Puss in Boots has lived 9 lives, and the way he lived them, recklessly, carelessly, throwing himself into every dangerous situation with zero regard for the cost.
You see? And anyway, I am a cat.
I have 9 lives. And how many times have you died already?
Eventually caught the attention of something that keeps very precise records. Death in this film is not a metaphor. He is a character, an actual, physical, whistling character. Who shows up in a red cloak with a pair of sickles because Puss burned through 8 lives like they were free, and the 9th one is not. And here is the specific detail that separates him from everything else on this list. Every villain above this entry wanted something. Death is not trying to take anything. He is not hunting Puss. He is fulfilling an appointment that was made the moment Puss used his 8th life. That is the first thing he does when he appears. And Puss, a character who headbutted a giant, outran a witch, fought his way through every impossible situation the franchise threw at him without breaking stride, goes completely pale.
Every time Death reappears throughout that film, the temperature of every scene drops immediately. What DreamWorks did here, specifically that no other animated studio has done, they made Death reasonable. When Puss finally chooses to value his last life instead of burning it recklessly, Death acknowledges it, closes his book, tells him it was a good life, and walks away. Because the point was never to kill Puss. The point was to make Puss understand what a life actually costs. And the moment that happened, the job was done.